YouTube, I hope this is working right now. I hope that wasn't too loud. Um, what is up? We just got back from the gym. Literally just exited right now, and now we're gonna go home and do our post-workout meal. And I want to talk about a topic that I have my experience in, and I'm not necessarily like the most professional, expert, biggest guy out there about that stuff, but I can say I have my fair share with a lot of fitness stuff, right? So I've just exited the gym right now, had everything simple. All my exercises are so simple. They're very minimal sets nowadays because I've been learning a lot through, like training from all these different types of people online, like Mike Menser, just like looking more into their way of style of training and seeing what I can implement, because I'm always learning. I'm always seeing what I can improve. And if you guys don't know me, my name is Carlos. I've just made what do you call it? Like an initiation to start posting content online. I was really going through a lot of tough times, not even that long ago, like 6 months ago. I was overweight. I was really unhappy with my body. And even though I was posting content, I just started to post content because I just didn't want to wait till, there's not gonna be a perfect time to start anything, It's not gonna be a perfect time to start posting content, to start going into the gym, to start working for that career, whatever it is that you want to go for. There's no perfect time to start. So I guess you could say the perfect time to start is just now, right? And so I just started posting content, posting my journey, and along the way I've been learning a lot of new stuff and just showing my transformation with my physique and my way of style of training, and just showing what I've learned out there. So I'm pretty young right now, and this is what I want to do. And I'm not sure where it's going to go, if I'm being honest. But the only thing I can focus on is the present and just focusing on my actions on the daily basis, right? So let me turn this down before the radio starts to blast on me. The radio tends to like be super loud. I don't know why. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about was like how I unfucked my training and my diets, because it was super bad like 6 months ago. Not like just 6 months ago, it was super bad. I mean, okay, it wasn't necessarily bad 6 months ago, but like just 8 months ago it was horrible, right? 6 months ago I was starting to eat the right foods. I just didn't know how much to eat, but that's not the point of this video right now. The first point I wanted to get into before I get off topic, because I tend to get off topic.
That story.
See, there we go. There's the music. See? Anyways, I had to drop my ego, man. 6 months ago, I was posting content. I was thinking like, oh, I was coping with myself saying I looked good, right? I was coping, and I hope you guys can catch the voice. I'm probably gonna have it this way. Hold on. And I didn't even know I had an ego. That's the dangerous part. You don't know you have an ego until you actually drop it, and you look back and you see how much you held yourself back just because you didn't want to be wrong, right? So the way I was eating, I was very skinny when I was growing up, and so the way I was eating was just like eat whatever, because any weight that I gain right now will be good weight. And that was the biggest lie I could have ever told myself, because I just wanted to gain muscle, right? I wanted to gain muscle fast. I went through a lot of hard times. I went through a breakup. I went through family members passing away, and I just wanted, like, I don't know, I had this inner anger, inner revenge in me that like just wanted to prove myself like I'm more fucking worth than this, you know? And so it was just like that inner anger I had just not even that long ago, like a year ago. And 6 months ago was when everything started to change, because I dropped my ego, right? So I had to drop my ego. The way I was eating was not optimal. The way I was training, I was overtraining at times, you know? I was consistent with the training part, but I was completely lost with the eating part. Right? I mean, it's easy to get to the gym after a certain point. You know, it's hard at the beginning, and then you fall off, and then it's like you pick yourself back up, and then you have this consolidation phase where like, you know, you're pretty consistent, but then there's some days you don't feel like it and you miss it. But then there comes to a point where it's like super easy to become consistent because it's just a way of life. And so that's just where I was at. And I was just hitting the gym, thinking that that was the only thing that I needed to be able to get some gains, to get some muscle. But I was neglecting the recovery part. I was neglecting the nutrition part. I was neglecting everything else, because everything else matters probably more than the gym. The gym is just there to stimulate the growth. And so all this I've just learned in the past few months, that the recovery part is so much more important, if anything, than just stimulating the muscle. You can stimulate all you want, but if you're not recovering properly and you're not fully recovering before your next workout, that means you're stimulating, and then your body is in the midst of recovery. And then as soon as you go to the next workout, your body is still not recovered, and then it starts to diminish your progress, which is why people start to lose their muscle faster the more they work out, because their body's not recovered. And so it takes energy from the muscle to be able to recover, instead of like taking away the fat or the carbs away from your macronutrients in your body. So you're just like depleting, right? And so the way you eat, you have to drop your ego and say, if you're fat right now, if you're not in the best shape possible, you have to drop the ego and say, what I'm doing is not working right now. What I'm doing is not working. How much I'm sleeping is not optimal. You need to be able to drop the ego, and it's gonna hurt because you feel like you're on top of the world, you know everything. But once you realize, the moment you think you know everything is the moment you stop growing. Right, so I dropped the ego. I was completely lost with the nutrition part, and then I was completely consistent with the workout part, but I wasn't recovering properly. I wasn't doing everything else correctly, right? So that would be like the first step before you do anything else, right? Just drop the ego, because the ego is the biggest wall getting in the way before you even take that first initial step of getting onto a routine. Even though if you don't see results, getting onto a routine, that's going to be the next thing. But the ego is going to block you from even getting into a new routine to change your habits, to change your ways, to change your physique, to change your mindset. The ego is the first wall that you must overcome. back home and we just made a meal, which you probably saw probably a montage of me having eggs, turkey breast, and bell pepper. And I probably put the macros up on screen. And then right after that, I just decided to make a shake. Right now, probably put the macros somewhere here, if anything, if I don't forget. But it just has milk, a cup of milk, one banana, protein powder, and the dry oats. So that's what I put in my shake, especially the oats if I want to keep myself satiated throughout the day, or if I don't want to have some cravings earlier on in the day, because I like to save my meals a little bit for later. I'll have my post-workout meal and then I'll just not eat for quite a bit, and then I'll save my meals until like 3 o'clock to like 7 o'clock, or latest like 8 o'clock at night. If I have a workout that's fasted tomorrow morning, I'll probably eat a meal later on, like with some more carbs in it. That's just my way of thinking. I just think that, okay, if I work out mainly in the morning, I'll just eat a good amount of carbs the night before. Carbs don't make you fat. They're just there for energy. Carbs are for energy, and I try to use them in my workouts as efficient as possible. If I work out in the morning, I'll just eat them the night before. If I work out later, I'll just eat them like 2 hours before. So that's just my way of thinking. But yeah, we just made the shake right now. I like to make some shakes oftentimes. Not, I don't like to rely on it though. I like to rely on whole foods, like the ones you just saw, with the eggs, turkey breast, and bell pepper, and the shake. I just have occasionally, usually. But like back to what I was saying, after dropping the ego, once you drop the ego, now you've lowered the barrier to actually listening and sticking to a plan, and not saying like, oh, this doesn't work. Because no matter, that's why I put ego first, because no matter what perfect plan you're given, if you don't see results quickly, your ego's gonna tell you it doesn't work. It's not for me. I'm not a beginner. This doesn't work for me. I'm not this type of person. I want to do optimal. The second thing is, after you drop the ego, after you lower that barrier, after you break that wall, is sticking to the plan. And let me tell you a story about this. I made an Instagram story about 6 months ago, like when I started my fitness journey, or not my fitness journey, but my weight loss journey, right? I was at 190 pounds. For my height and weight, and my age, I was considered overweight. And so, and it wasn't probably like a huge like overweight type of deal, but it was something considerable, right? You'll probably see on my Instagram. I'll probably pop up a picture right here if I don't forget, of course. But I was starting that in 6 months ago, 7 months ago. January of 2025 was when I started, and I made an Instagram story of me walking on the treadmill. It was me walking on the treadmill, holding my phone up, saying, "Guys, I'm gonna be, doing some more steps throughout the day. I'm really gonna take this serious now, and just, stick to the plan. And I understand that if you don't see results fast, it's okay, because it's just gonna take some time before you actually see results, and that's where most people quit." I made that Instagram story, and I'll probably save it into a highlight. Now that I think about it, I'll probably save it into one of my highlights. I posted it, and it was there. I just posted Instagram stories back then, even though if I was overweight, I didn't know I was until I actually like checked the numbers. I made that Instagram story, and I literally talked it into existence that I was gonna stick to the plan, no matter how hard it got. And after a month, after a few weeks to a month, it nothing changed. I looked the exact same. And except I dropped a couple pounds, which is good, but it was so unmotivating just to see myself look the same, right? After a month. And my ego was creeping back up, and it was telling me, this is not working. This is not for you. You knew they were lying. And I thought cardio wasn't going to work for me, you know? And don't get it wrong. The cardio that I'm talking about is this active daily cardio, just walking, just daily activity. You're walking somewhere, probably jogging here and there. Not talking about, I'm probably even swimming too, but I'm not talking about like sprinting all the damn time, do running and at 10 speed, like those people at the gym who just constantly running and they're sweating their ass off. And it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be hard. Cardio doesn't have to be hard. You can just do stuff that you enjoy. And that's why you see older people, they like to go on walks, they like to get active, and they seem the healthiest and the happiest because they're just doing something they enjoy. They go to the beach, they wake up early, they get their active steps in, you know? And that's what I had started to imply. I saw, okay, I did some research and they said 10,000 steps a day is optimal to be able to start losing weight, at least in the beginning. And so when I heard that, I was like, okay, I mean, it seems pretty easy, right? But then after a month, I saw no results and I was just about to quit. But I told myself, I've been in this situation so many times before. And what did I do every single time? I quit. And what happened after that? I still had the same result. What's the worst that can happen? I look the same. At least I know what doesn't work, based off experience, right? But I kept that ego far away from me. I kept it at arm length distance. I kept it at arm's length, and I said, I've been in this situation so many times before where I try something for just like 2 weeks and nothing changes and I quit. I'm gonna be different this time. I'm gonna actually stick to the plan. And the second and third month, that's when I dropped like at least 10 pounds, right? At least 10 pounds. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, but I know in the span of four to 5 months, I dropped 20 pounds, right? And in those 4 to 5 months, I kept being consistent. And once I started to actually see results, the results are not there in week 1, not week 2, not week 3, not week 4. They're there at the end, at the week 7, 8, 9, 10. That's when you truly see the results because your body's starting to adapt and it's starting to understand your new level of activity. And it's like, okay, now we need to become smart because your body's optimal plan is to survive, not to really thrive. It is to survive. And so if it sees that you're spending more time and daily energy into all these different activities, not intensely, but something like, more active than usual, like getting 10 to 12,000 steps, it's going to be like, okay, we need to lose some weight so that all this activity is easier, right? And this is not like all sciencey based stuff. I'm just talking to you as like just as a friend next to me. It's going to see your daily activity like, okay, we need to lose some weight in order to sustain all this activity. And so you become lighter. And now it's more sustainable. Now I'm able to run. I used to play soccer back then. And I tried to get back into it back in November of 2024. And I was gassed out. I play striker or midfield sometimes. Defensive, I play really good supposedly, but that's not the point. Every time I sprinted, I would just gassed out. I was pretty good, but I would only score when it was like a ball coming through and I had to like just one touch it or like a cross and I would header it or volley it. But like I couldn't take on multiple people at once, when I was dribbling and I would be gassed out if I lost the ball. I'll be like, and we had to recover and I'm like, fuck, I have to go back. That's the only thing I hated about soccer. I hated the running back and forth, but it was still fun while it lasted. But um, what was I saying? Yeah, I was trying to get back into soccer, and I was super gassed out. And then I started to play again just a little bit with my brother, and he, I went back. No, I went back to the park by myself, and I was like, let's give it a go. And it was so much lighter. I felt so much lighter. I felt so much faster, more speedy. I had less fat on me, and of course, with some of that, I lost a little bit of muscle, but mainly it was fat. You can just tell. Like on my Instagram, you can probably tell. You'll probably see like transformation videos. And again, I'll probably put a picture up there, right here, if I don't forget. But if you stick to the plan, you don't get results fast. You never get results fast. If people got results fast, there would be no industry of weight loss. There would be no industry and people making all this money off supplements, thinking that weight loss is this complicated thing that you must take supplements, you must do this type of cardio, you must eat this, you must avoid that. I kept most of especially with carbs. People think carbs are bad, but if you use them wisely, they are going to be great for you. They're going to be great. If keto works for you, great. The all meat diet, great. But I kept carbs, I kept some of my favorite foods, except I just cut back on them and I stuck to the plan. I was eating correctly for so long. For so long I was eating correctly with no results. For that whole month or two, right? A month and a half ish. I was eating correctly, I was tracking my stuff, I was doing my steps, I was doing my lifts, and I was able to see the results. Now, I'll be honest, the more I got into the cut, the more I stuck to the plan, I kind of, made it too unsustainable, right? I was eating at 1,700 calories, and I only should have done that for just about 2 weeks, but I kept doing it for like about a month and a half or 2 months, which is way too long for such an aggressive cut. And so I started to binge eat a little bit here and there, and now I'm starting to get back on track with trying to maintain my weight, trying to make it more sustainable and not be so overly obsessive with trying to cut calories just to lose fat, but because your body will ultimately start to lose muscle if you start to cut calories too fast, cut it too short, and you're going to use your muscle for energy, which is what you don't want to do. So I'm now increasing my calories little by little. It's been like about 3 weeks since I increased it to 2,200, and I'm trying to stay consistent at that for a good while. Probably for another week or two, I'll be at that, and I'll increase it again, because now I exactly know how to bulk. I know how to lean bulk. I know how to stay patient with the process. I know exactly what I need to do now based off the failures, how I could teach it to others. Now I know exactly what's the correct path after going through the maze several times and trying to figure out my way out. And now I'm going back at the start of the maze and I'm realizing, okay, now I know what happens if I do that. I know what happens if I feel this emotion, these cravings. I know what to do. I know exactly now, almost exactly what to do. And I know my physique is only going to get better as soon as I start that lean bulk. And right now I'm trying to maintain. I'm not trying to gain weight too fast, but the results are going to be so immaculate. I already know in like a year or two. I've been learning so much recently, and I'm just trying to teach it out there to people who are also trying to become the best version of themselves. And so that's the whole point of this channel. So if you got any value from that, I hope you did. But there's going to be more content like this. It's not the end of the video. I'm just going to, just drink the shake. I just been sitting here for a while, but going to finish the shake. And just know, this is your sign to stick to the plan. If you need help, hire someone to help you out. If you need help, that's what I did, and it shortcut the process so much faster. It did shortcut it. So I really encourage you, just stick to the plan. Okay, and first drop your ego. You have to drop your ego. Then when you get on a plan, and that ego is set off to the side, you stick to the plan, and you try for more than a month. Don't be consistent for just a month and just quit. More than a month, okay? Don't let anything stop you. But I'm going to finish the shake right now, and then we're going to get to some deep work. Probably going to take a quick shower, and I'll see you in the next scene. All right, here's where we're currently at with the physique. Just got out the shower right now, so I'm pretty fresh right now. So this is just what my physique looks like at the moment. And I'll probably put a picture up here, like of how it was back then, like right here, back in January. And so this is just where I'm at now. I was way leaner before, but I did start to gain some weight back just to start maintaining my weight, because I don't want to become too light like a twig. But I did want to cut down that fat so I can actually see the muscle definition that I was actually working for my whole life, except it was just covered by all this fat. And so I just never got to see the progress. But this is just where we're at right now. Currently, I like the way my tricep is formed. I hope you can hear me because this chain is like all over the place. But yeah, I don't want to just sit here for too long. But I just want to go over the last point of what got me to essentially like move past that phase of just being super overweight, which was stop coping with excuses. Stop coping with all the excuses. And my main excuse back then, because as I told you, I was very skinny, so any weight that I gained would be good weight to me. Any weight that I gained, like if the scale was going up, I was like happy, right? But there got to a point where I was noticing I was not getting as much definition. And I was getting more fat faster than muscle, right? And that's how it works. You can't just force muscle to grow fast. And so I told myself, I'm just bulking. It's a part of the process. I see all these TikToks and YouTube videos saying like, oh, it's just a part of the process. Trust the process. It's okay. You're going to get a little bit of a chub, which is fine. It's just part. And sure, it might be part of the process. But there was a point where I just used that as an excuse to just keep eating whatever. And as you know, I work at a fast food restaurant, and so I would just take over the extras over there at times. I worked over there for quite a long time, and I would just take the extras of all the foods when I was bulking last year. And as an excuse, you know, I was bulking, so let me just put on some weight, let me just get the scale to go up and high. And so I eventually got to that weight or that picture. I'll probably, hopefully I don't forget, or you can just go and see my Instagram. My Instagram's down below. You'll see like a lot of transformational videos of me, how I was back then. um but yeah, it was super bad. It got to a point where I put my phone down, and you'll see this clip oftentimes. I put my phone down and I scoot back in the bathroom, and I see myself. I was recording myself, just like a physique check. I pick up the phone, I stop recording, and I see how much of a chub I have here. I had such a big chub here, right? I still have some on the sides, but that's gonna be the one that is hard, that's gonna hard to get rid of. This one sticks on for the longest time, right? So I mean, you can see some ab definition, but right here is where I used to struggle a lot. But everywhere here was just a whole bunch of chub, right? And so after that point, I just said, screw this. I'm not going to be able to lift all this heavy weight, lift this consistently just for me to look like this, right? And so another thing you have to do is just stop coping with excuses and actually just admit that you're doing it wrong. I had to admit that I was doing it wrong, even after a few years of lifting. And honestly, last year was the only first year I actually went into a gym. And the years before that, like 2 to 3 years before that, was when I was lifting in my garage. Like, I have a garage in the back, but those got eventually, I started to get used to those too fast. You know, I was progressing, but then I was using the same weight over and over and over because I couldn't afford to buy more weights. So I just used those weights for like another year or two, and I plateaued because I wasn't challenging my body enough. And so I went to an actual gym, and that's when I started to notice a lot of progress. But then my diet just got out of track. It got out of whack. So when that got out of whack, I was just gaining more fat than muscle, right? I was still gaining muscle, but I was getting more fat. And so eventually I got to 190 pounds. And then that was like in January. And that's when I had to just admit that that my process was wrong. Probably I was lifting probably with the correct exercises. I was probably lifting good, challenging myself to failure, but it was not optimal because I was just coping with my mistakes to feel better about myself, right? I was telling myself all the reasons on why I was doing just fine, right? I was telling myself all these reasons why I was doing just fine, and eventually it just caught up to me, and that's when I started to change myself. So that kind of goes hand in hand with dropping your ego. You have to drop your ego, and once you get on a plan, you have to stick to that plan, right? Even if it's the worst plan, it's better to be indefinite of purpose or definite of purpose and just work hard with the wrong plan and see what not to do than it is to just stay stagnant and just say, oh, what you're doing right now is working. Once you think that you know everything, or you think that there's nothing that has to be improved, that's when you stop growing, right? That's when you stop growing. So you have to drop the ego, stick to the plan, and let go of the coping excuses that you've been telling yourself for such a long time, even no matter how experienced you are in lifting. I thought I was quite experienced myself. I'm intermediately experienced, but there's always so much more to learn. There's always so many, and I'm not saying to go find the fitness influencers techniques and all this like different workouts. No, I'm saying that there's always room to learn how to optimize better, right? It's not overly obsessed over optimization. I'm not saying that, but to say like, okay, maybe I wasn't really thinking about that, you know? Maybe I should sleep at this time so I can wake up at this time and have my pre-workout meal so that I can have all the energy for this time when I work out at this time. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like the overly obsessive stuff or like, I'll do this workout routine to gain a 5% muscle gain or whatever. I'm just making stuff off the top of my head. But all the complicated stuff just to get a small marginal result or advantage is not really worth it, in my opinion. But look over the times of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't eat carbs in the morning because when I eat carbs in the morning, please, but when I eat carbs in the morning, I get foggy headed, so I should just save the carbs for later. Or at least if I'm going to eat carbs in the morning, let's make sure I work out in an hour and a half so that I can have the energy to be able to go and put that energy into my workout. You know, stuff like that. That stuff has been really eye-opening to me nowadays. I've been learning a lot about that stuff from like Mike Mentzer, from all these other teachers online. Mike Menser is the one I've been just looking at the most recently, and so it seems like his training technique is just about recovery and really optimizing going to failure and then recovering properly and then making sure that you're not overworking yourself, right? That's just one aspect. But not to get off topic, but let me make sure. Um, yeah, don't cope. Even if you have, don't just say, oh, it's one bad meal, because that bad meal turns into 10 bad meals and turns into a whole habit, and then it's hard to break that habit after you established it in your mind. Like, try to at least be as directional as possible without getting off track. Try to be as directional as possible and intentional with the direction that you're going through. Try to be intentional, not don't just wing it and just eat anything just because you want to gain weight, because then that's gonna backfire. You're gonna gain weight, you're gonna chase the scale, but that's gonna backfire. But essentially, it's just all about lowering yourself so you can pick up the success. And I was neglecting that for so long. I was delaying that for so long. I wanted to just think I know everything and just do what I have to do so I don't have to be told what to do. But as soon as I started to learn and see my flaws, that's when I was like, okay, I've been doing this quite wrong. Let me try to do this instead, and let me stick to it. Don't let me just not try something new and just do and try that for just a week or two. Try it and actually put intention into it, and try for a longer period of time. Right? If it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. At least you found out what doesn't work for you, and then you can kind of reverse engineer. Okay, maybe I shouldn't do this in this order, but maybe in this order I can do that. Just stuff like that. But that's essentially those three main things that I would do to unfuck my training and unfuck my diet. Mainly my diet, if I'm being honest. It's going to be mainly diet, because my training, honestly, I could have been more optimized with like trying to recover more, because I always thought, okay, you just need to train as much as possible to gain a lot of muscle, which is not the case. Not the case at all. It might sound weird, but it's not the case. Your muscle is stimulated, as I said, in the gym. And then it is grown during recovery, during your sleep, during your diet, during your nutrition, right? So I was trying to overtrain so many times, and that's why I was not gaining as much progress, because I wasn't letting my muscle recover, right? So that's another thing. Just stimulate the muscle. You could only need to work out 3 to 5 times a week, 5 times max, right? No 6 or 7 times max. No, I used to do 6 times or 5 times, and now I'm back to 4. I'm at 4 right now. So, and it seems to be going well, right? It seems to be working well, especially with my schedule. I have work, and I have to do also content. I have to do also programs for my program, and it just seems like a lot of stuff. But I know that I have to make time for my weightlifting. So I chose a 4-day split that hits all my muscle groups that I'm able to do consistently, right? I'd rather have you do something consistently, and maybe it's not the best split, but it's better than getting the best split like of 3 days, 4 days, and you can't even stick to it, just something like that as an example. So make sure you got a plan, make sure you drop your ego, make sure you're willing to learn and admit that you're making mistakes, right? It's not bad to admit, because if you think that you were doing everything right and you still have the physique that you don't like, that should scare you, right? So the fact that you're admitting to mistakes and that you're learning the new things, that should give you a sigh of relief of like, okay, maybe I'm not getting results because of I could probably do this better. Maybe I can probably cut back on this training routine. Maybe I should do this and eat this instead of this after my workout. The more you learn, the more sigh of relief you should have, because it's like you're learning something new to try to at least implement into your routine. I'm not saying implement single thing you learn, but like take nuggets and bits and pieces from everything that you're learning and see how you can format it into the perfect training routine, perfect nutrition routine, meal plan, and all these different types of stuff, or recovery too. So it's not that hard, okay? It's simple, which is the hard part. People overcomplicate the simple things, and I want to make sure that you learn from my mistakes, that it doesn't have to be complicated. It's always simple, and simple is the hardest thing to master in this day and age, honestly. So hope you enjoyed. I hope you got value from that, because I'm trying to post more on this channel, and if you got value, then let me know some way, shape, or form. Follow my Instagram, it'll be down below. And if you want to build your dream physique, you want to build and master your discipline, master a routine to be able to master your mindset, and your routine to master your physique, let me know. There's going to be a link in the below, either in the comments or in the description. Let's see if we can have a strategy call. And if not, then I wish you the best, and I hope you still find value in my channel. So I'll see you in the next one.